And now, I think that really leads into my next question. How do I spend time alone with God? How do I do that? How can I actually have a quiet time with God? But, now that I know it's being, not just feeling, how do I spend time with God?
Yeah, it's interesting because people go to someone to learn how to meditate. They'll go to do yoga. They'll go to a personal trainer at the gym. They go to a dietitian, right? Or they'll go to a doctor, a tax professional. We get a lot of advice from a lot of people in a lot of different areas of life. But something like this, our spiritual journey or spending time alone with God, we kind of leave that sometimes up to, well, let's just see what works. I guess I'll go to church and see what happens. But people don't just go watch yoga online, or they don't just watch a personal trainer online. They do something with that information, or at least if they want to get any results, right? In 100 years' time, or certainly in 1,000 years' time, what we do with the advice that I want to share about people's spiritual journey is going to last much longer. It's going to be much more important in 100 years. What I want to share with you about how to develop this personal relationship with Jesus than what your yoga instructor would say, or what your personal trainers say, dietitian, financial consultant, whoever, even what a doctor might say. In 1,000 years, think about it. Your spiritual journey is so much more important. Now, nothing against any of those people. And I think most of them have some great advice that we ought to take to heart. I certainly should be listening to a few of them, right? But in 100 years or in 1,000 years, I'll tell you what will matter most is not what the yoga instructor told you. And most yoga instructors would agree, right? So let me cut to the chase and explain how to spend time alone with God. I think it can be wrapped up in something I haven't, invented or anything, but it's just a way to remember. It's the word SOAP. You spend time in the scripture, you spend time in observation, you spend time in application, and you spend time in prayer. But if you want to spend time alone with God, well, you get away from the crowd, you get away even if you have to do it in the bathroom. But you start and you find a verse. Now, some people say, oh, should I read through the Bible in a year? No. The pastor says no.
Which is crazy, right?
Yeah. Because the Bible was never given to us to kind of get through or check off the done mark. Right. It's really that we ought to find a verse. So I would recommend that people go look at the book of James or look at the book of John, one of the Gospels. But James is so practical. I love that book. And if you just pick out a verse or two verses or read 2 or 3 verses until something kind of jumps out at you, and then observe. So you start with the scripture. Yep. You spend a little bit of time just looking at that. Sometimes, like even myself, honestly, this morning, I read over the same 3 verses, I bet 15 times. Because I just felt like there's got to be something in there for me this day. So I observed, right? And then I thought, well, what is in there for me? That's the application, right? And I thought, God, what do you want me to do with that? And then so important and so easily to skip over is just this prayer time, the time to spend alone, listening to God and talking to God.
That is so good. And really what is happening beneath the surface is you're creating a habit.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's very tangible. You break it into bite-sized pieces, and it's not overwhelming.
Yeah.
Right? You're like, I can do this. Soap. Okay, I missed the application part. And so that just reminds us, and then we do that enough. There's a habit there. Next thing you know, you're growing. You're spending time with God.
Yeah.
I love that. So moving out of that, I think there's one of those habits that we can form that you've set up and done a lot of work, and this is our Daily Renew. And you can sign up for a Daily Renew email that comes to your inbox in the morning, and you can just open up that piece of scripture and a piece of application that just says, oh, I can take that. That's great. But